Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, we're wrapping up season 4. We're doing it all. We're putting it all together. We don't have crushes anymore. We're having drinks with people. What was the favorite episode? Who was the most annoying? What was our favorite alternate episode? Did any of the rankings change? I think they did. But I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to mention that. But you know what I do want to mention? Coming up February 26th, very soon at Red Herring Theater, ABD Radio Hour is presenting a musical. It's another musical. If you've heard them before, you know they're awesome. They're tuneful. They're fun. You're going to have your toes tapping. And you can see it in person, Red Herring Theater. Follow them at IBD Presents. Follow us at It's All Been Done Radio Hour on Facebook. Also, follow It's All Been Checked Before on Facebook. Get the whole package. You know what, while I'm at it, I'm going to throw it on. We're wrapping up a season. Patreon.com/IBD. Get the full experience. Merge with us. It's like the end of Star Trek The Motion Picture, which I think we covered like 9 years ago. Anyway, here we're covering all of season 4 of The Next Generation on It's All Been Checked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
Space madness. Sorry. and Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. That's next, not next week because we're going on hiatus after this week.
That's right.
But our first bonus episode of the hiatus of several that we're releasing will be Ren and Stimpy Space Madness. We'll also be covering the 25th anniversary Star Trek special, which aired a few days after the season 5 premiere. And we're watching Dude, Where's My Car? Which will be a Patreon exclusive. If you want to hear us talk about Dude, Where's My Car? $2 donor, patreon.com/IABD.
Money well spent.
And you can listen to other exclusive episodes we've done in the past. Yeah. We're doing like 2 a year, 1 after each season. Anyway, today, though, we are talking about Star Trek The Next Generation Season 4. What's your overall impression of the season now that we've just finished it?
Hated it. It was fine.
Liar.
No, it's probably right. I think we've talked about this. It's probably been the best overall so far. Overall season of it, of TNG at least, and a lot of strong episodes. Was hard to. I mean, we had like maybe a couple circling the bottom.
Yeah.
Even those aren't like, oh my god, these are awful.
No.
So.
No. I think it is easily the strongest season so far, and I know we've said that every season.
Right.
So far. But it is, because if we look at just the top, and we're not going to get into the deep ranking yet, but one of Keith's favorite episodes probably is Brothers. It came in at number 12 for the season. That's how deep the bench is.
And I would have had it lower.
If we're looking at the top, Family, The Wounded, Reunion, Redemption, Best of Both Worlds Part 2, Data's Day, First Contact, The Drumhead, Cupid, Half a Life, all of those excellent episodes, and that's already 10 deep.
Let's come back to Brothers for just a second here.
Sure.
See, when you say it's my favorite, first of all, it's hard for me to have a favorite anything.
One of your favorites, I said.
Well, yeah, one of it. But even then, I think a lot of it was more nostalgia in the sense of this is one of the most memorable episodes for me.
Sure.
It's one of the ones I might have caught on TV most often at the time when it was airing, and had some of the more memorable moments that just stuck in my head. So there was that. Seeing it modern day all the way through as an adult. There were some things.
I can tell you right below Brothers is Devils too, which we enjoy immensely too. So we really have to get more than halfway through the season before we find episodes that we had issues with. And Steven really enjoyed Legacy. It's down at 18.
Yeah.
Final Mission, Wesley's last episode, not terrible. It's at number 20 of 26.
Yeah.
So that tells you, like...
I was thinking about this today, going into this, just thinking about like how I feel like the first 2 seasons of TNG were like season 1 of TOS, where you're developing things, and then, season 3, I think things kicked up a notch, like season 2 of TOS. And then this is what the natural progression should have been for TOS, which is we jump off from here, but we all know all the issues that happen.
Season 3 had a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that hurt it.
Season
of TOS.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas TNG didn't have those issues and continued to grow. No, they did.
What TNG did after the first 2 seasons was get rid of all the original series people that were bringing them down.
Right, exactly. Well, exactly.
Producers.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And put in a new crop of fresh-faced people.
Yeah, who
with better ideas.
Expanded things. And so I felt like this was just the natural extension and growth of that. And, closing with Best of Both Worlds and having that trilogy, obviously I think was a great jump start, and kind of the serialization to an extent,
Yeah.
helped as well.
For this era, that was pretty heavy serialization.
Yeah, and just knowing the characters now, and we definitely there've been times where we're like, I wanted to see more of these people, like the last episode of the season.
Sure.
Crusher got a couple episodes. Yeah, for better or worse, Jordy got a couple episodes. Troy had a couple episodes.
Worf and Data got episodes.
Yeah,
Riker. Yeah.
Data's Day. I think that was a Data episode.
We liked that.
We did it. We loved it.
O'Brien still hasn't gotten an episode.
What was his marriage episode? That was Data's Day.
I would argue the closest we had to O'Brien episode was the Cardassian, his former captain.
Yeah.
Which was one of the best episodes of the season.
That was a good one. Yeah.
We'll get plenty of O'Brien episodes in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
So
Maybe. Well, a little bit.
So far we're ranking the seasons 4, 3, 2, 1. And we said the first couple seasons were weaker than the original series, season 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But do we think like seasons 3 and 4 of Next Gen are comparable to original 1 and 2?
Well, a couple things I want to say. First of all, as we know, I'm biased toward the newer things. The newer things get, I'm usually I like it more.
Sure.
So I would say they're stronger than TOS anyway. But again, I would probably need to go back and watch TOS again to really appreciate it as much as I internalize these. The other thing is we mentioned something during the previous the finale episode about the TOS influence, or more importantly the lack of ensemble storylines and so on. And I hadn't really made that connection again, but you pointed it out, like how much Encounter at Farpoint it felt like they were trying to be TOS in certain ways. They were doing certain kind of dramatic beats in the same ways. And as you said, they got rid of the influence, and then suddenly they started fleshing out the other characters more and doing the more modern storytelling.
Yeah.
I'd almost have to go back and do a statistical analysis and break it down. Because, we were talking about this, I think, last week and earlier, maybe in this episode too, but I think it's hard to find the stinkers in this season. And
if you look at the bottom.
Well, but I think there's just not as many. Because I think
like the bottom 3.
No,
I think even
I'm kidding.
And I think that's where I'd have to go back and look at it, especially season 2 of TOS for because I think there's probably more stinkers, for lack of a better term,
percentage-wise.
Yeah, I think season 1 and 2 of TOS, their highs are pretty high for historical reasons and everything, but I think you've got some high highs, obviously, these last couple episodes, or last couple seasons, and I don't know if you'd have those, like I said, I don't know if they get as low as some of those seasons, as a Charlie X or
Catspaw,
Operation Annihilate, Catspaw.
Tomorrow is Yesterday, The Alternative Factor, Mud's Women.
Mud's Women, yeah, that's season 1.
Mention Catspaw, that's one of the ones I need to go back and watch, really, and concentrate on.
But season 2, Catspaw, Immunity Syndrome, Return to Tomorrow, Gamesters of Trace.
Ooh, the Immunity Syndrome. Ooh, you just remind me of
Obsession.
That's a tough one.
What was in that?
That's the one where they're in the long amoeba, which as a kid, we loved it. As an adult, when we watched it, I was like, get me out of here.
That was a Nebula episode where they're kind of inside the thing, and it was like and
they had it was a amoeba that was swallowing up star systems.
Huh.
Not the Doomsday Machine, but the Immunity Syndrome.
So you think TNG 3 and 4 are comparable to TOS 1 and 2?
Yeah, and I think with definitely 4, I feel like we had, and again, as we talk about it, there are definitely episodes this season I didn't care for, but
sure,
just you naming off those 2 or 3 there, I was like, Immunity Syndrome. But,
So does that mean TNG is vying for number 1 above TOS? For you at this point?
I think it's a conversation. Yeah. I take it back. No, the nostalgia is always going to.
Yeah.
But objectively and analytically, I think it might be. Man, this season was really. It's hard for me to. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I was raised on the more modern track and the films.
Yeah.
And I hadn't watched some of the original series until we watched them. And yet, it is very hard for me to say TNG is better than TOS still. I'm not willing to make that statement at this point. Yeah. I do think there are many things TNG does better than TOS. But there are those handful of episodes of TOS that I'm not sure TNG is ever going to touch because it was a different style of storytelling and the way they presented. And even as great as Family is, and Family is excellent, you put that up against City on the Edge of Forever, I'm probably going to go City on the Edge of Forever.
Yeah, I guess that's one of those high highs.
Right, or The Cage. The Cage is so good.
And I watched that several months ago now, but The Menagerie, and I was just like, man, this is like, if that was, it's like a perfect sci-fi movie.
Yeah, they're so different. It's hard to say one's better than the other. I think it'll be much easier to rank Next Gen, DS9, Voyager because they were all contemporary to one another, amongst each other. Yeah, we're not going to try to definitively say TNG or TOS until we get to the end of TNG, obviously. Yeah, but I don't know. At this point, I'm still letting TOS eke it out, even though I think the average episode is better on Next Gen.
That's what I think too, and again, I am going to say just I'm an old man kind of thing, but an argument I wouldn't have made until recently would be that there's the argument that the Star Wars Minute guys make that has been compelling to me, and this is definitely apples and oranges because we're talking about movies versus series, I think. But if not for Star Wars, you don't have this world that they build upon for the rest of it, and you can say that a little bit with TOS and TNG for sure, obviously, but they're also, as like you said, they're still two very different shows, even though Roddenberry's there, and some of the basics are the same. But
I love Patrick Stewart. I love Michael Dorn as Worf. I love Brett Spiner as Data. But you hate Jonathan Frakes. You're about to say. No, of course not. I love Jonathan Frakes. as do I. I'm trying to pull out like the most developed, fleshed out characters in Next Gen. And this could be because original series wasn't really an ensemble. They're not as iconic to me as Kirk and Spock and Bones. Yeah. And I think that's where I have trouble ranking TNG above, is because they're so spread out, those characters don't get it as well defined. I don't know. There's something about that to me. Whereas we get the Worf episode, the Data episode that really fleshes them out, but every week we were getting Spock development. Every week we were getting Kirk development. That makes sense. And Picard is the closest to getting that, but it's still usually, because he's more reserved, it's not as splashy and it's not as in your face. Yeah.
That's a great point. You made me think of something else as you were saying that. One of the disadvantages TNG is always going to have is that it's just longevity. This was there for longer. It had TOS had much longer to pick up steam and go through all the trials and tribulations before we even got to TNG. So that's the sort of thing you learn without even trying. You don't have to watch Star Trek to have Kirk, Spock, and Bones drilled into you. Yeah. Yeah, whereas TNG, you have to be in it.
And I think to that point, TOS being one of the first big hits in second run syndication. Yeah. So that everyone watched it, and so it had a long build up. Whereas when TNG came around, obviously it was going to be compared, but it was a more crowded field. And then now, of course, the internet and everything else.
But Next Gen was like number one on television for a while. Voyager even broke through, was number one on satellite television for a while. So there was more popularity there than the original series originally enjoyed. Yeah. I will say Enterprise D better than the original Enterprise. Sorry. If we're talking exterior only, Enterprise A might be my favorite from the later films. But if we're talking interior total ship, Enterprise D. Yeah, better design.
My only argument for that would be nostalgia. If I went with that one,
I mean, but the original Enterprise didn't have the holodeck. Or if you did,
that's an argument. And stuff. See, for me, that's an argument in favor of the original.
No, think about what you would do with the holodeck, and then tell me that again. Also, who was the bartender on the original series? You don't know. TNG, you get to go get drinks from people.
That's a fair point.
Wasn't it Isaac?
That's a fair point.
No, it was Clint. It was Clint Howard as a little kid. He was serving drinks, right?
Tranya.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if he had joined the ship as the bartender?
Yes.
Something quick you glossed over back there was really good, I thought. By the time TNG and so forth, once you got to Voyager, sci-fi was a lot more mainstream.
Yeah.
It wasn't as much of a. I remember mentioned Trials and Tribulations before. It wasn't as much of a stigma to get into Star Trek.
TNG didn't have to be sold as a Western in space.
Yes.
And even 2021 with Picard and Discovery and everything, you're not going to get those actors nominated for Best Actor at the Emmys.
That's true.
So there is still a stigma on sci-fi television.
Well, yeah, I mean, in that sense, yes. But I mean, it's not like, oh, let's go beat up that nerd because he watches Star Trek.
Right. Oh, yeah.
The world. Or like
yeah, but Voyager was starting to gain more acceptance. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, if you told, how a 12-year-old me that, there are going to be Star Trek movies all the time, new series all the time. Oh, and by the way, there's going to be Marvel and DC movies constantly. I was like, what are you talking about?
Except for last year.
Well, yeah, right. Then I'd really be like, what are you talking about?
Black Widow was delayed an entire 12 months. Yeah. So, back to Season 4 specifically. Yes. Top 5 this year. Family, Wounded, Reunion, Redemption, Best of Both Worlds. Do we think those are our top 5? If we go below, we get Data's Day and First Contact, which I think are excellent episodes.
Yeah.
I might, in retrospect, put just from what I'm feeling right now in the moment, bump First Contact to number 5 and knock Best of Both Worlds and Data's Day down a spot.
See,
I'd swap Best of Both Worlds and First Contact. Leave Data's Day at number 6.
I would have been inclined to bump up Data's Day, but that's one of those, for lack of a better term, fun episodes.
Yeah.
Bump it up above Best of Both Worlds.
Yeah, and maybe that's Best of Both Worlds Part 2 is just fading into the day.
Yeah,
I'm sure if we watched it right now,
There it
I'm like,
is.
oh, this is great.
Yes, that's exactly.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm so bad at qualitative comparisons in that sense. During the TNG versus TOS thing, it's just. I understand that if I were watching it right at this moment, that kind of thing, it's just. It's a different feeling, and it's hard to put those things up against.
That's
each
why I
other.
never stop rewatching the original series.
Episode by episode, I don't know. Especially at this distance.
Right.
If we watched them all like yesterday, like everyone back to back, maybe one would have like stuck out and gone like, oh, that can't,
Oof,
But-
that would be a long 24 hours. It was 26 episodes, but they're about 45 minutes apiece. So you could do, it'd take about 20 hours to watch the whole
We'd
season.
watch them all, then we'd sleep for a while, and then we'd talk about
But then
it.
they wouldn't be as fresh.
We forget them immediately as soon as we sleep.
By the time we get to the end of the 20 hours, though, we've forgotten the first couple hours.
Of course.
Yep.
Yeah.
If we could just download them all into our brain simultaneously.
Like Data can do sometimes,
So,
but not always.
talking about the bottom of the season, starting from 5 from the bottom, going down to the bottom. The Host, The Loss, Suddenly Human, Identity Crisis, Galaxy's Child. Seems pretty fair to me.
Yeah, I mean the ones that popped out when you talked about them, it's always a hard sell for me when we're going for family tragedies, pregnancies. Oh my God, what happened to this family memory thing? And I'm going down to this dream. That's just
Yeah.
it gets tedious, especially in retrospect.
Yeah, I don't even think I hated Identity Crisis and the Host that much. I mean, they weren't
I
great.
didn't hate them.
Again,
What was our... Oh, Galaxy's Child.
Galaxy's Child was the worst this season. Leah Brahms.
Leah Brahms, that's right.
Oh,
No, the creepiness factor, definitely.
Yeah, that really hurt that. It did not age well, unfortunately. That wasn't a knock on Leah Brahms. We love Leah Brahms. But yeah. I think the ickiness factor of Modern Identity is what doomed that to be last place.
I probably fought for that one harder than most things I would usually watch, but it really is. It's hard for me to dislike Geordi and to not judge it by what it should have been.
Yeah.
Is the thing, and really that's what it came down to. Is when you can that clearly point out what should have been and lay out a better episode than it was, and it probably does deserve to knock it down too.
The Loss where Deanna loses her...
her powers. Her mutant powers.
We need to fix it.
All right. See, now I'm like, oh, you know what? There were some low lows.
They weren't that bad. There were some nice parts about that episode.
but yeah, like I said, the Host, Crisis, in my mind, I don't remember being angry or falling asleep.
Jordy's a glowy blue guy. That's fine.
It's the pizza cliche,
Yeah, even though it's not that good.
It's just still Trek.
Yeah.
It's funny, the 2 Jordy-centric episodes were our 2 least favorite of the season.
Wow. Well, but they were...
Well, there was actually a third Geordi episode, right? Because when he was kidnapped by the Romulans.
Yeah, I thought we liked that one.
We did like that one. So he had 3 episodes this season, but his first 2 were down at the bottom.
Yeah.
I was looking for a pattern. Sometimes we can see like the beginning of the season's at the top or the bottom and whatever, and it's really not. It's pretty well spread out. I mean, our top ones are like number 2, 12, 7, 26, 1.
Wow.
So that's kind of spread. The bottom's like 23, 10, 4, 18, 16. Like, there's no clear pattern from that. I think it was relatively spread out in quality throughout the season. They didn't lose steam at the end, which was nice. Very, very happy with this season, in my opinion. Overall, very strong.
Well, it's all downhill from here.
I don't think so. I think the later seasons, which I've seen less of, are highly regarded.
I'm teasing, of course. I'm still looking forward to everything.
Wesley's average annoyance this season is it even fair because he was in so few episodes? He was only in 7 episodes of the season.
Yeah.
So his average score is a 2.1. As opposed to in season 3, his average was a 1.67.
Huh.
Season 2, a 2.8. 2.02 and season 1 at 2.8. So we found him. This was his second most annoying season by average.
Well, I'm glad he's gone.
After season 1. Yeah, but he peaked at 2.8 in season 1, which is not that annoying.
Yeah.
And then obviously we stopped.
It must have been the Joel Savage season.
Or it's the
The
other thing I think of is
not where we rated
him falling in the pool. Whoa, 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 whoa.
if we're looking at which main characters we rated as annoying, Geordi is the number 1 that I'm seeing through here.
Wow.
What about Picard?
Picard is probably number 2, and that's Picard. Every season ends up in the annoying area, and it's not for the whole season. It's just there are episodes that they write him poorly.
I was about to say it's a reflection of when you have a main character like that you try to make the main character whether he should be or not.
Yeah.
Would even cite Buffy.
Yeah.
And many things like that. When you have that character, you have to center things around.
Yeah.
You show them warts and all and so on, which is good. But then
sometimes
those warts are like,
doesn't make sense.
I am seeing a couple of times Riker was chosen by some of us. A couple times Crusher was chosen. I see one Worf. I see one Troy. A couple Troys. So I do see a Data. That's all the leads. So all the leads appear in the annoyance list at some point. The only ones we were united on, were we ever united on the annoyance? I'm looking. Duras and Reunion. We all hated Duras.
Yeah.
Final Mission, we all hated Durgo, the drunk captain.
Yes.
In Devil's Due, we all hated Accost Jared, of course, because he was the worst. Galaxy's Child, we all were annoyed by Geordi. So we had several times where we lined up this season.
So do you think Duras was because he was actually annoying or written annoying or because he was being a good villain?
I think he was kind of a cartoonish villain. I think he was annoying, in my opinion. We did get some couples in the annoyance this season.
Yeah.
Cake O'Brien or Crushadan.
Yep.
So that's a new thing for us. And of course, lots of people that we probably don't even remember who they are.
So back to the Wesley thing for a moment.
Sure.
I'm not sure if we discussed this at the time, but do you know if there was some sort of backstage reason for this? I
think he was unhappy.
Fan outrage, that kind of thing? Or
No, I mean, there was some fan outrage, but I think he was unhappy, and I think he was growing up, and he'd done some films, and he was ready to go do something else. Yeah, I mean, obviously he returned, so he didn't, hate Trek or anything. So he just wasn't well used.
Do you think so? Do you know? Was it just like he decided, hey, I want to go, or was it?
I'm pretty sure it was his decision, but I don't want to say with 100% certainty. I respect Will Wheaton too much to start making claims I can't back up.
True.
I will say I did not miss him when he left. I've mostly not noticed that he's been gone.
Right.
That's a really good point. I've never thought that either. I've never been like, I wish Will was here.
There's only the one
Wesley was
time
here.
when I was saying the thing about Geordi going on his retreat, or, the conference, and we were talking about how Data didn't go with him, and it's like, well, what would they do? They don't have this other Deus Ex Machina character to do something if something happens.
There were a couple of episodes this season that felt like they were writing a Wesley to give it to somebody else because he wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And that could just be the writers were in the habit of writing for Wesley. But yeah, I'm sorry, Will Wheaton, because I do like him, and I do wish I'm glad they're bringing him back a couple more times. I know we've got like a Wesley-centric episode coming up at some point. I do wish they used him in the films at all. He had a cameo in one.
When he comes on, when we finally do our special Galaxy Quest episode, we'll have Will Wheaton come on and watch it.
If he wants to come to Columbus, Ohio, because we don't have Zoom guests.
That's right.
That's beneath us to have celebrities on Zoom.
If Will Wheaton reached out to us and said, I'd like to be on your show, we would just do a talk with him episode that we can record in any theater that he wants. Whatever Will Wheaton wants, Will Wheaton would get. I'm just... We're not seeking that out.
If our fans can start a Twitter campaign.
We're not trying to get guests. But if guests want to come on that were involved in the show, reach out. Jim at iabdpresents.com will talk to you.
# Will Wheaton Quest.
I mean, of the actors, he's near the top of my list of somebody I'd love to have on. I respect the heck out of him. Cool. Crushes. We switched midway through the season,
yes, we did.
Which changed the way
Thanks
we were...
to Geordi being terrible.
being creepy. But we were being a little bit creepy too.
Yes.
So they changed the way we ranked, though, because, for instance, in the beginning you kept Marie Picard for a while, then you kept Ashara for a while. I kept Shelby for a while at the beginning. Keith kept Kalar for a long time, and then Linnell for a few episodes. Towards the end of the season, once we made the change, we started mixing it up a lot more. And I think gave us
a different look.
more
it is a different
interesting.
thought. Yeah.
Well, it gave us some more interesting choices when we talk about. I want to talk to this actor versus the character. I want to talk to an alternate version of this. I want to talk to this bartender we imagined on this planet but we didn't see.
Yeah.
I think it gave us. I think it made the segment more interesting to make that change.
Yeah.
I don't regret the change at all. I only wish we'd done it sooner. Honestly.
Yeah, definitely.
But who do you want to have a drink with overall for the season? Do you have an answer?
All of that said, Ashara is the only one I'm going to have a drink with.
Fair.
So she can crush me like she crushed it.
I mean,
or tried to crush
for
it.
similar reasons, Betor.
Yeah.
Betor is mine for the season. Kalar.
Yeah.
It's hard. There. I don't know. No, I really don't. It's hard. Honestly, it's hard for me to think through all the different possibilities throughout the entire season. But yes, when it comes down to crushes or whatever, that's still some influence. And this, of course, isn't that perfect. Not perfect, but a hypothetical world in which this would not create real world problems by having these kinds of.
I mean, Ardra's right there for me too from Devil's Due.
Yeah, she was a blast.
Kalar as well.
I think I would have been more inclined to go with Jane Sabet, who had if we were still, it was still more of a crush thing. Then yeah.
Well, I think this will probably be the last season that we could talk about this in this way because similar to the annoyances that we're not picking an annoyance this season because we pick a different person every week.
Right.
This new format, we're picking different people every week instead of keeping them like we were.
Right. It makes it, and I think that's a good thing. And I think it's again reflective of me one way or the other that I am always like, man, I hate these. Or I used to be like, man, I don't like these Klingon episodes. But I always picked a Klingon woman. That's my crush of the episode.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, for season 1, we did pick an annoyance of the season. We did not do that for seasons 2 and 3.
Oh, okay.
If we were going to do it for season 4, Geordi, obviously.
Yeah.
So those are our overall impressions, our overall rankings of things. Mm-hmm. As we start to close out this conversation, is there something about season 4 that stands out to you, good or bad, as like, this is what I'll remember this season for?
I think kind of the serialization. I think that's why we love those episodes early. I definitely know I love those episodes early on for that. Mm-hmm. I think if one thing stands out, especially the Klingon stuff. Like I said, again, I think we talked about that. I didn't care that much for the Klingons early on, but I think as I'm spending more time with them and their planet, even though their ways are confounding and seem arbitrary, it still there's levels to it that are
This is the season where the Klingons have really come alive as a race for the first time, I think. Yeah. And obviously the next 10 years we're going to get so much more. But yeah, I agree. Serialization, Klingons, really developing up the O'Brien and Guinan supporting, really building that ensemble. Yeah. O'Brien and Guinan at this point are like their Sulu and Uhura and Chekhov level characters. Mm-hmm. And then they just have a lot more 7 leads. Yeah. We've now established and firmed up who the 7 leads are, which it took them until halfway through this season to do because of Wesley and Yar and whatever. Yeah. Even though these 7 have all been there since the beginning. We got rid of the other ones.
Good point.
I guess the other thing would just be the consistency for the most part. Yeah. It just...
And we're starting to get introduced to these other races, like the Cardassians. Mm-hmm. Seemed interesting. Mm-hmm. Whereas before they bring in like the Ferengi and we're like, whatever. Mm-hmm. Now, like, they bring the Cardassians, like, I want to see more about the Cardassians. Yeah. Or the Trill, they really screwed up, but we're going to be excited to see more about the Trill later on,
The Riker thing is that's what I thought about. Yeah, he seems to have taken a back seat in a lot of things, I guess, probably because he was Jonathan Frakes was directing.
Sure.
Mm. But I kind of like getting past the willy won't he kind of thing, at least for now.
With Troy?
No, with
the Enterprise.
Yes, Enterprise. Commanding. And
we were still talking about that at the beginning of this season.
Right, but that's
kind of gone away.
It's like they kind of put that to bed in that first episode, and we move on and do other things. Just had him kind of there to.
I think we've also settled into who Riker is finally this season because he isn't Kirk. Has learned. We started out as a Kirk-like character that learned so much from Picard, where he's not Picard. He's got his own style that's kind of an in-between Kirk and Picard, and I think he's settled into being comfortable with that personality.
I mean, he's the kind of guy who would not sit in this chair the way I am. He would turn it around.
He would turn it around. Yeah. But he also has learned patience and tempering the tempers and things that he did not have in the earlier
As we learned last week, patience is a human virtue. So
he is, I guess, an example of the characters across the board at this point, where you can have an episode like the one where Data's getting dating advice. You can go to each one of them, have them do something like that with them, and you cut to a Riker in any episode, and give him a couple of lines to do like that, and it's going to kill comedically for the audience, and it's just.
I think Worf also settled into his character this season. That he's finally the Worf that we know as it goes on.
In general, the look and feel feels like what I would remember if somebody said, "What does TNG do?" That would pop in my head, and I would look, this way these characters look and feel.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is where TNG found its identity, and we can point it to this season. Like, really settled in its identity. Not that I didn't know it before, but, like, this is peak TNG.
In theory. Which was the episode where Data had to...
I mean, that's a matter of perspective. I don't think we can end that any better. So, like I said, we got some bonus episodes coming. We're taking our typical 6 weeks off. We're going to release a few bonus in the meantime. When we come back, it will be with Redemption Part 2, in which, as war fights in the Klingon Civil War, Captain Picard and his crew must stop the Romulans from helping their pawns achieve victory.
Wow.
So, we didn't mention that the previous episode was directed by Cliff Bole, one of our regulars, written by Ron D. Moore, head of the Klingons. And this is the last season, really, where we have Gene Roddenberry. Because he will pass away in October of this year, shortly after Season 5 gets going. So
the great bird of the galaxy, R.I.P.
Yep. Yeah, so, okay, until then, live long.
To be continued.
Prosper, I guess.
Fire! Was that last season?
Oh, damn it! Oh my god, that would have been perfect callback, and I missed it.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?